Hi guys, Pavi is back with another video. Before I start today's video, I wanted to take this opportunity to wish all of my haters, all of my supporters, all of my followers a very, very happy new year to you all. I know we're in the second week of January, but I've not had a chance to put out a video in 2026 yet. So wishing you all a very, very happy and healthy and prosperous new year. May it become a very, very good year for you. So, we are at the eve of the first Grand Slam of the year. All tennis fans will know this is a bit like the night before Christmas. A Grand Slam is always something that gives us a lot of excitement, and no more so than the Australian Open this year. Felt as though it's come around very, very quickly for me this year. I don't know if others feel the same, but it feels like it has come around very, very quickly. And I am, of course, very, very excited to see how this the next 2 weeks develop, and who will be the person winning the titles on the men's and the women's side this year. Very, very exciting indeed. So for those of you who remember, I used to do a lot of predictions in my early years on Twitter, as it was called then, under Mystic Pav. Those of you who followed me then will be pleased to know Mystic Pav is back for 2026. So I'll be doing a lot more predictions on tennis, and hopefully giving you some value for those of you who like a bet. I'm going to try and give you some predictions. Not always are the favourites, at the moment, particularly on the men's side, it's very, very driven by Alcaraz and Sinner, who understandably so, they've won so many of the recent slams. But I'm going to try and look to give you a little bit of value and try and look at who else in the field could be a big contender. And this year, BetRight have kindly done some Pavi boosts for anyone that follows my link, which will boost up some of the people that I think have a good chance and good value of progressing in this year's Australian Open. So I'm going to go straight into the men's side and what I think is going to be what is going to happen in the next few weeks. And we're going to have to start really at the bookies' clear and hot favourite. So the favourite to win 2026 Australian Open is Jannik Sinner. Obviously, he has now won the Australian Open the last 2 times, so he goes in as a clear favourite ahead of Alcaraz. So even though Sinner has fallen down to number 2 in the rankings, even though Alcaraz has beaten him a lot in the last 18 months or so, since 2024, Alcaraz has got a very, very strong record against Sinner. But I think the bookmakers have gone with Sinner because of the fact that he's won it twice. So they may feel that that is his best surface. Followed closely to Alcaraz is Carlos Alcaraz. So there's not a huge amount separating these two at the top end of the markets. But Sinner is the favourite, Alcaraz is the second favourite. Then there's a little bit of a gap until Novak Djokovic. So obviously the 10-time Australian Open champion. It's his most successful Grand Slam ever, all time. No one's ever matched his records at the Australian Open, so he is always going to be there or thereabouts. Last year, people remember he beat Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinal, playing one of his best performances, but he got injured. He tore a muscle, unfortunately had to pull out in his match against Alexander Zverev. So will he have some luck with his injuries this year? And then outside of the top 3, there's a huge gap. So the bookmakers at the moment think that there's only really 3 contenders for the men's, which are Sinner, Alcaraz and Djokovic. There's a big gap then to go into Zverev, who's the 4th favourite, he's currently world number 3. So that is why he was the 4th favourite, but there's quite a big distance. Now, my recommendation for this year's Australian Open, and it might surprise a few, because this player has had a really, really difficult last 2 or 3 years on the court, but I'm showing signs that he is really, really getting back to his best tennis, and things are changing for him off the court as well, which means from a mental point of view, I think he's going to be a really, really good person to follow in the Australian Open, and offers great value to kind of go deep and even go all the way. And that player, some of you may already know, I'm talking about Daniil Medvedev. Now, Daniil Medvedev has in the Australian Open, has had a pretty good record. I mean, many people will remember him in 2022, where he went 2 sets up against Rafa Nadal in the final, was playing amazing. He had a chance for a break point in the 3rd set. I think he had multiple point chances to go 4-2 up against Nadal. He didn't convert, and then he almost kind of folded under the pressure. Nadal then went on to win that Australian Open, and Medvedev really struggled for form after that. It kind of really dipped. But if we go back to Medvedev when he won his first ever Grand Slam, and a lot of people remember it was a very famous event because Novak Djokovic was going for the calendar Grand Slam. This is in 2021. Djokovic had won the Australian Open, he had won Roland Garros, he had won Wimbledon, and he was in the final against Daniil Medvedev, going for the calendar Grand Slam. And Medvedev turned up and put in one of his best performances that I've ever seen, and he beat a fatigued-looking Djokovic, it has to be said, but he won his first Grand Slam. And everyone after that was saying that Medvedev is the #1 player on hard court. He was expected to really go on and dominate the tour and win multiple slams. It never happened. Medvedev, since 2021, has not won a single slam. So some of you might say, well, why am I all of a sudden thinking Medvedev could be the player to beat at this year's Australian Open? With tennis, it's an individual sport, so external events are very important to how a player progresses. Now, if we look at Medvedev when he won in 2021, he was at the top of his game. Everything was going right for him on and off the court, and he was really enjoying his tennis. 2022 was life-changing for Medvedev because he became a dad for the first time, which is a brilliant thing. But it does change your motivations and commitments, and it just changes how you look at things, because being a parent is probably the most the most important thing that most people will have in their life, and it changes your life because the way you look at things changes. So Medvedev became a dad for the first time in 2022. We then also obviously had the very difficult period where Ukraine and Russia went to war. Now, what happened there was that obviously Russians then lost their identity. They were banned from Wimbledon, obviously famously in 2022. There was a lot of hate and a lot of toxicity around all Russian players. And Medvedev has said himself that this kind of impacted him. It would, it was not his fault where he's born from, but all of a sudden, because he was Russian, people were looking at him in a different way, and even to the extent where he was even banned from playing in Wimbledon in 2022 just on the fact that he was Russian. So a lot of external things were happening with Medvedev, and that's kind of continued in the last few years. He became a father again 2025, and again that changes things. He's a very hands-on parent as well. So I think maybe his priorities and what was happening to him mentally started to impact him on court. And that's where I think, he really struggled, and he got out of the top 10. We've all seen his results in the last 18 months. He was getting beaten by players outside of the top 100, and he was getting very frustrated, more so than Medvedev, because I think he's a great character, a really important player in the tennis court. But things were getting to him. Now, if we fast forward to the end of 2025, Medvedev won his first title for a long time. He won ATP Kazakhstan, albeit it was a 250 event. But I saw signs that Medvedev had really turned the corner and had started to really kind of show us what he was capable of, and bringing that tennis that he had in 2021, era when he was playing his best. He then made the quarters of Paris. He then continued that form this year into Brisbane. He won Brisbane. So he just won Brisbane last week. He's playing at a very high level. Now, looking at the odds of Medvedev, you think, well, okay, this guy's a former finalist. He is a Grand Slam winner, but he's outside of the top 10 now. And because of that form and dip in fitness, he's great value. He's 33-1 to win this year's Australian Open. Now, if you look at his draw, he is in a draw that he is not in the same draw as Sinner, as Alcaraz, as Djokovic, and they are the big three at the moment. You know, there were the three players that are consistently making semis and finals. No other player on the men's side want to play them at the moment. Medvedev has actually avoided them in the draw. So his highest ranked player in his draw is Alexander Zverev, who, you know, in the last 18 months has really kind of not really produced his best tennis that he's capable of. So I don't think Medvedev would have too much concerns really with regards to his draw. So he's got an excellent draw. Now for him to get through to win that draw, he's priced at 11-4 with BetRight, which I think represents really, really good value. Now, if you want to go further and think Medvedev actually will make the final, that's 12-1, which I think, again, is really, really good value. And if you think that he can go on and win all of it, that's 33-1. So BetRight are going to do a special Pavy boost on that for you. So if you're interested, have a look at the link below on this post and you'll be able to see how you can do that. So that's kind of where I think my value bet is going to be for the Australian Open on the men's side this year. Now, a lot of you will want to know why I don't think the big three at the moment are going to win. So I'll give you a few kind of reasons why I don't think that Sinner, Alcaraz or Djokovic are going to win this year's Australian Open. And it's a big shout because they are hot favourites. Everywhere you go, they are favourites, particularly Sinner and Alcaraz. You know, it's odds on for them to make the final. Now, Sinner, after he came back from his ban for 3 months, everyone thought he would struggle. It was a big thing that he kind of had to go through. There was a lot of focus. It never really transpired. He kind of almost took off from where he left off and started playing at a very, very high level again. You know, obviously he made the final at Roland Garros, which he could really have won. And then obviously he went on to win Wimbledon as well. So, you know, his form has been very, very good. He's backed that up towards the end of last year. He won the Tour finals at a canter. I think he lost a set, I believe, if I remember correctly. So Sinner is very much still on form. But if you look at Sinner's body language going into the Australian Open this year, he's got a few injury niggles. I saw him get a little bit frustrated with his racket, and his body language for me would seem to say that everything that he's gone through in the last couple of years, whether you're behind him or against him or whatever, that will at some point take its toll. It will take its toll. It will take its toll, like it has on Iga Swiatek. When she kind of came back after her ban, it took her several months before she won a title. And Swiatek was winning titles left, right and centre before that, but it took her until Wimbledon for her to win that first title. And even since Wimbledon, her form has been a little bit up and down because it's a lot to take. And the same, I think, could happen for Sinner. It didn't happen when he first came back from the ban, but I think at some point it will hit him, the enormity of it, the pressure of it. Going to win a slam 3 times on the trot is not an easy achievement. So that is one of the reasons why I think Sinner is not going to win this year's Australian Open. Now we'll go on to Alcaraz next. Now, Alcaraz has been in phenomenal form in all the Grand Slams, really, in the last maybe 2-3 years. He's now already up to 6 Grand Slams, which, you know, is really a phenomenal achievement considering he's still very, very young. Now, what Alcaraz has done this year, which I've spoken to about on X, which I was really, really surprised about, is he has parted company with Juan Carlos Ferreira. Now, Ferreira and Alcaraz were almost like the dream duo in tennis. You know, we all know how much Alcaraz respected Ferreira. We all know how well they got on. And we all know there was a period when Ferreira wasn't in Alcaraz's box. He would really struggle. Now, Ferreira, you know, is not maybe the best technical coach in the world. But what he was really, really good at doing was looking at Alcaraz's opponents, who he was playing next from a tactical standpoint, and figuring out what style of play Alcaraz needed to play to beat that player. Now, those of you will say, well, some tournaments Ferreira wasn't there, but Alcaraz still did well. He did, but they were still working together. So they would have been sending videos before the match. Even if he wasn't in his box, they would have done the analysis together. And I really think Alcaraz has made a mistake, and reading beyond the lines, it looks as though this decision has come from mainly his dad, from what I'm hearing on the tour. It wasn't Alcaraz's decision, But you know, there was Ferreira was given an option to continue his relationship, but Ferreira has come out and said that some of the conditions that were put on there was just no way that he could accept those. It was almost like Team Alcaraz feel like it's time for a change. And, you know, I could understand that if Alcaraz was struggling, but he had just won the US Open playing some of the best tennis of his career. So he's in the form of his life. He just gets the number one and finishes career year-end number one for the first time in his career. That is not the time that you make a change. It really isn't. And I know some, you know, I haven't got an issue with Alcaraz. I really, really like him. I think he's a great guy for tennis, great personality, phenomenal player. But I really think he's made a mistake. And I think the Australian Open is the first Grand Slam that he's going to go into without Juan Carlos Ferreira's knowledge, his tactical kind of skill, all the work that he did in, you know, preparing Alcaraz to you know, combat his opponents. I think he's going to struggle. So that is the reason why I don't think Alcaraz is going to win this year's Australian Open. And it's not been his favourite slam. Let's be honest. You know, this is the only slam that he's never won before. And I don't think he will be able to win it without Juan Carlos Ferreira as well. The next one, obviously, is Djokovic. Obviously, I'm a massive Djokovic fan and will back him to the hilt. And I must say, I am really, really impressed with Novak Djokovic pre-season. You know, he's gone into a Rocky-style camp. He's kept a very low profile this year. You know, he's reduced his kind of press and sponsorships obligations going into this year. I know that he's been working extremely hard on his fitness, on his diet. He is looking in the best shape that I've seen him in many, many years. So you're probably asking, well, why don't I think he can then go on and win the Australian Open, an event that he's done so well in? And my reasoning for that is purely on the fact that I think to win the title, he hasn't had that competitive level of play that he needed before the Australian Open. Now, if you hear me out here, Djokovic hasn't played in a competitive event until Athens. Now, that was at the start of November. We're now kind of middle of January. So obviously he didn't play the Paris Masters. He didn't play the Tour Finals. He was scheduled to play Brisbane before the Australian Open, but he had a couple of injury niggles and he didn't play. So that competitive play that he's not done has been nearly 3 or 4 months. And I think that might just be the slight reason why he doesn't quite make it number 25 at this year's Australian Open. Having said that, I think Djokovic could well go all the way to the final. I think he's in really, really good shape. Obviously, his warm-up games that he's had today, he's played against Medvedev, he's played against TFO, he's played against Varasho. He's looked really, really good, and he's looking better and better as each of those matches go on. He was particularly impressive against Francis TFO in the match that they had there. And some of the people that are on the ground with Djokovic are saying that Djokovic's fitness is the best that they've seen it for 2 years. He's got that glint in the eye. He is really ripped. He is focused. All he needs is a little bit of luck on his injuries. Obviously, Federer alluded to it as well. Federer was saying that, you know, it was really unfortunate that Djokovic suffered injuries when he got to all the semis last year. Obviously, he tore a muscle against Alcaraz last year, which then led to him withdrawing from his match against Zverev. He also picked up an injury in Wimbledon, which was right in front of me. I was watching him against Caboli, and that was on match point. I was really, really unlucky, which meant he really struggled in the semi against Sinner at Wimbledon. And I think US Open was more the fact that it was a long season and he just ran out of gas. He'd put a lot of effort into that as well. So we're just hoping that, you know, he has a little bit of luck. He's got a new team with him. He's got a new fitness coach. He's taking this very, very seriously. So I think Djokovic will have a good Australian Open, but I just don't think he will go all the way this year. So I think if it's not Medvedev, I think it could be a surprise package. So it could be someone like a Valentin Varesho who kind of just rocked up to Shanghai Masters and wins it out of nowhere. It could be a first-time winner of a Grand Slam. Maybe someone like a Felix who's starting to show some of his good form as well. Is it Zverev's time? I don't know. I think Zverev has got all the talent in the world, but mentally, I think he's got that barrier. Until he wins that first slam, he's going to find it very, very difficult. So that is my outlook on this year's Australian Open. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree, who you think is going to win, who you think is good value. Obviously, as I said, the bookmakers at the moment think that it's a done deal with an Alcaraz Sinner final. They think they've gone odds on that. They think that that's what's going to happen. Do you agree with that? You know, I can see why they've done that. Because you know, I think there's so many finals, consecutive finals now have been Alcaraz and Sinner in the Grand Slam, so I can see why they've gone for that again. But I've given you my reasons why. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. As I said, look below on the links. There's some really good Pavy boosts on there for Medvedev from BetRight, and I'll be doing some other value bets as the tournament goes on, and hopefully you can beat the bookies and you know, get some fun out of that as well. But make sure you always bet responsibly as well. So that is my predictions at the top end. You know, I'll be doing a separate review on Djokovic in terms of where he's kind of been in the last few months going into the Australian Open, and obviously also we'll be looking at the Brits. Unfortunately, only 7 of them this year, only 3 on the men's side, which you know, is a little bit disappointing for me personally. I think, you know, the fact that the LTA is one of the well-resourced federations in the world, to only have 7 players that made the main draw is a little bit disappointing. But let's see how they get on. You know, let's see how they get on. Amir Raducanu is the highest ranked British player on the women's side, and Cam Norrie, who's been in phenomenal form really in the last 12 months, has got himself back to be a seeded player, which you know, when he is remarkable considering where he was just over a year ago. So those are the highest ranked players. And then you've got Jacob Fernley, who is going up the rankings. Those who follow me will know that I'm a big fan of Jacob Fernley, and I think he'll do really, really well. Jack Draper, obviously, unfortunately, is still not well. Is still not ready to come back. And Arthur Ferry did phenomenally well to qualify for the Australian Open. The youngster, he's you know, all the best to him. And on the women's side, I said Raducanu's got a pretty straightforward first round match, so hopefully she can come through that. And then you've got Katie Bolter, Sunny Cartel, and Fran Jones as well. So so those are the Brits to back. You know, as I said, I'm looking forward to the Australian Open, and those of you in the UK will know that our sleep pattern in the next 2 weeks is going to be completely shot. But yeah, that is my men's preview. As I said, if those of you who are gambling, I would personally say stay away from Sinner and Alcaraz in terms of the betting markets. I don't think there's any value at all in them. You know, you have to put a lot of money to get anything back because it's so predictable. And for the reasons given, I think they might just struggle this year. But anyway, let's see if it ages well or ages badly. Enjoy the Australian Open, guys, and I'll be updating everyone with regular updates, videos, and excited for it. Take care. God bless. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And let me have your comments, and let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Take care. All the best.